Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. We are back in studio. Thanks for riding out the last couple of weeks with us, and we were working remotely. What a show this week. As you can see, my buddy James Morris on the screen. We'll get to James in just a moment. For former Iowa Hawkeye linebacking great, Super Bowl champion with the Patriots back in the day. We'll get into all that with James as usual. He's back again this year with us. James Vandenberg will join us in a couple of weeks when he gets back from a trip he's on. Can't wait to talk to him about the quarterback play, but James Morris will also get into that and the defense. I've kept you long enough. I got to get right to it with you. You're in Des Moines at Principal Financial still and crushing it in the financial world like you did on the football field. Former Gatorade Player of the Year for the state of Iowa high school football players. You were a running back and a linebacker. But I got to ask you, James, the intriguing thing about this. You said you were taking some in the office because you're in central Iowa. You're getting a lot of heat from Iowa State fans. And you said, man, there's a lot more Iowa State fans than I realized. Of course, they won last week against UNI. So I'm sure you defended yourself verbally quite nicely, I'm guessing, knowing you as I do.
Yeah, I do what I can, but you always got to be careful when you're punching down, Dave. You know that it's about taking the high road at a certain point. So we try to do that, but unfortunately, some of the Hawks gave a little bulletin board material earlier this week, as you know. So it'll be interesting. I know that the Iowa State fans are psyched, and it's going to be a hornet's nest on Saturday for sure.
Yeah. To allude to that, thank you for going there. Seth Anderson said, did he see opportunities in so many words? And he said, yes, plenty against that Cyclone backfield. Of course, you have the Big 10 or Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week last week, and also Tampa, the great defensive back there. So I'm sure some guys took exception to that. Now, Seth Anderson is the son of an NFL great in Willie Flipper Anderson, but he played at Charleston Southern last year, a smaller school. Said he had 4,500 to 5,000 people in the stands instead of the 70,000 plus at Kinnick. How do you think, I asked you off the air, I said, gee, what do you think Kirk Ferentz said to him? And you just kind of smiled. So I'm sure Seth got a talking to after he said those statements, I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, I bet that's the case. And the nice thing about playing football, unlike some other aspects of sports and sports business, is it's not a family business. And so if your dad played in the NFL, that doesn't mean squat for you. So he gave him some bulletin board material. It'll be his first exposure to the rivalry. My hope is that he's right, and I admire the moxie. But it's about going out there and doing it on Saturday. We just need to back it up. And I know KF is thinking the way I'm speaking. So I'm sure he got a pretty stern talking to on Wednesday, I think is the day after their media day.
I would agree with you and don't doubt that for a second. So let's go here with you. You talked off camera with me, and I want to bring this on camera. You said that Iowa State experience, especially playing at Jack Trice in Ames, and you said, Dave, I played at the Big House, I played at the Horseshoe, so you played at Michigan, Ohio State, you played at Penn State, and you said nothing's like playing at Iowa State. Talk about that experience as a player and what you get from those fans.
Yeah, I would just say it is a hornet's nest is the absolute best way that I can describe it. It is loud. It is hostile. The fans are in your face, calling you out by name all game. And you are going to get everything that those guys have for 4 quarters. And you could run the tape of every game before the Cyhawk Series and every game after. And you do a side by side. And sometimes it looks like you're watching a different team play. I mean, that's how juiced up and how animated those guys get for that game. And it's just something we got to be prepared for. And I can certainly tell you the Iowa guys on the Iowa roster, they feel that way. But I know there's been some fan criticism over the years that maybe, we don't rise to the occasion in the past in the same way Iowa State has. Now we've won 6 years in a row now. So
6 out of the last 7 lost last year, 10-7. Yeah.
But it's going to be a hostile environment. And that stadium it's going to be rocking.
Yeah. No, you nailed it. 6 of the last 7 years the Hawks have won. Of course, they lost 10-7 last year at Kinnick. So when you and I talk about defense, and we will in just a moment with the great game Higgins had, 16 tackles, 11 of those solo, you know what that's like the next day when you wake up on Sunday. He had to be a little sore, I'm guessing. But let's talk offense first. And you and I were talking off the camera, and I want to bring this back on camera. Cade McNamara, what a start to his Hawkeye career. Still a little dinged up with that bum wheel. His leg is still a little tender, and he says he's going to have to play with this all year. And so did KF. Coach Ferentz said we're going to have to deal with this all year. But you take a look at how he started and the three big transfers, Cade McNamara, his tight end from Michigan, Eric All, and his wide receiver we just mentioned, Seth Anderson. Seth catches the big pass early in the first drive. First time since 1991, the Hawkeyes scored on a touchdown pass on the opening drive. Go figure that one, James, 32 years removed. And then the next possession, they score a touchdown and then try to run, play it out. They score a touchdown in the second half with Caleb Johnson. Running game a little difficult, and you kind of joked with me and said, well, there's a game called the NFL. You don't have to run the ball all the time. You can throw it. KF, BF, Brian Ferentz, they're going to want to run the ball. Weren't able to successfully do that very well on last Saturday against Utah State. Looked like we were talking about the offensive line really picking up their game in the spring practices and even in summer drills and now fall drills. They left a little bit to be desired, to put it mildly. James, your takeaway on the offensive line and the Hawks offense?
Yeah, I would say in football, there's kind of two things. There's playing the game you want to play, and then there's winning. And the two are not always in alignment. It's great when they are, but when they're not, sometimes you need to accept that. And I think Iowa's done that very well throughout, especially the last couple of years when you think about special teams plays and defensive scoring. The one thing we haven't done is really leaned into the passing game, in part because there hasn't been a passing game to lean into. So I think I understand what Kirk's approach was probably in the second half, and it's that he felt like we had the advantage in the physical matchup, and he wanted to give those guys live reps and give them an opportunity to execute, especially when they felt like they had the game in control in the fourth quarter, despite the fact that we couldn't get out of our own way at times. So I'd be surprised if we saw that degree of commitment when you were having some success in the passing game. And we saw throws and we saw progressions and we saw executions from Cade that frankly we haven't seen since CJ Beathard was here. I mean, you look at some of the throws he made and the way he threw some guys open, the ball that Reganey dropped, the slant over the middle that Lachey dropped, and then the stuff that guys caught. I mean, those are NFL type throws. And so if he's on like that, I think you got to feed him.
I like the way you said that. He threw guys open, and you think of that catch that Lachey made, that deep ball in the second half, and so I think he wanted to make good from what he dropped earlier, as you mentioned. So that's a great analysis on the offense, and you and I have always joked we're into year 4 now with you, James, and so as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, we're into year 4 of the Hawkeye TV show here statewide. So your friends in Central Iowa and Des Moines can hear you talk Iowa, but also our friends in Fox 28 in the Cedar Rapids area, Eastern Iowa, but then also our friends in Sioux City, Western Iowa, as well as Southern Iowa, Southeast Iowa, and Ottumwa. James, before I get to predictions or what your thoughts are, let's talk about that defense. And I mentioned Higgins earlier. What a game. And Nick Jackson, because Higgins did so much, talk to me a little bit. Is it going to take time for a transfer great from Virginia like Nick Jackson to get into the game? He played well, but didn't have the numbers Higgins did. And, of course, Wangpa and DeJean and then the defensive line. Let's have you kind of give us the whole takeaway there, please, James.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, you said 4 years. Does that mean at the end of the season I get a diploma?
Diploma and a huge bonus and raise. How about that?
That was perfect.
I like the thumbs up, yes.
Yeah, I watched the linebackers a little bit during the game, and I was really impressed with the stuff that Jay was doing. And he's had some time in the system, and so he's really stepping into kind of that leadership role, that high production role. So that was encouraging to see. In regards to the transfers coming in, yeah, it's just going to take time. And you see some of the stuff, he's really playing on instinct at this point. I mean, in a camp install is good, but it's not enough. But he's got some ability. He's got some experience. He can play well in the box. I think you'll see continuous improvement throughout the year, from that group.
Looking forward to that. Now let's you and I talk about predictions. And I'm not going to get into, because it's the Cyhawk Series, the rivalry game. So yeah, depending on what sports book you look at, you can get your own line, over-unders and all that, prop bets. But let's you and I talk straightforwardly here. Hawkeyes by 1 million, or what are we talking about here, James?
Ooh. I'm going to say Hawks by 10.
Okay, I like that. Higher scoring, mid-range, or what are your ballpark?
Yeah, somebody asked me this today. Let's say 33-23.
Well, I like that. I was going to go 28-17, so we're in the same ballpark. I think the Hawks by 2 scores, so 10 or 11. I like the way we're thinking. James, my friend, we'll talk to you next week, and then provided schedules still hold, and then we'll have James Vandenberg. We'll rotate you guys in and out each week. A hello to you from Pat Angerer, a guy that played a linebacking great just before your time at Iowa. And Pat was great last week, and a lot of fans reached out to me, as they usually do, and said, man, it was great to catch up with Pat Angerer, living in the Quad Cities, his native Quad Cities, and all the great work he does with Brett Greenwood, and still going to see him, and they're still lifelong friends and helping him through his rehab. So a hello from Pat Angerer to you, James.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Pat's the best. That's awesome, Dave. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, look forward to it. James Morris, for Dave O'Hara and Hawkeye, we'll be back with more in just a few moments.
To have a strong finish, you need an excellent start. It's true on the track and also in the field. That's why Mershman Seeds works tirelessly to deliver cutting-edge technology year after year. Introducing Starting Line, Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, now providing added protection from white mold and sudden death syndrome all season. Ask for Starting Line seed treatment from Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Michael Merrick, my production partner, joining me on this side of the camera for this segment. Cyhawk Series has already started for him, not just a football game on Saturday as we record this on Thursday, September 7th. Michael, great seeing you.
Great to see you, Dave. It's been great.
We're back, finally.
It's about time.
That's right. Thanks for covering for me the last couple of weeks. We've been working remotely, so we are back in studio. Season 4. Can you believe we're at episode 3 already for Season 4? So we are well on our way, Michael.
Yeah, we're already getting rolling, already getting started. Like you said, Cyhawk Week, already on its way.
Let's get to what you called almost 2 weeks ago now with Hawkeye women's soccer with a big victory over the Cyclones. Heartbreaker last night. Reason we pushed this recording back to Thursday. Usually we record on Tuesdays or Wednesday afternoons. So I love the fact that you were going to be 2-0 in the Cyhawk Series. You were calling games, obviously, for the Daily Iowan Television, University of Iowa, student-run TV station, but also the student-run radio station, KRUI. You're the sports director there. And you're calling the football game on Saturday at Ames. But I will say this to you. Excitement for the Hawks, I thought they had it. They win the first 2 sets or games of the best of 5 against Iowa State last night at Extreme Arena. Michael, drop the last 3 and lose it 3-2, but 15-9 and rally score, in the end, in the wrap-up game. Heartbreaker, Michael.
It absolutely was. And the Hawkeyes got out to a really good start. That first set was all back and forth between both teams. It was give up a point, get a point. They even went to extra points there. Hawkeyes took the first one, kind of dominated that second set. And then it looked like, wow, Iowa might get a sweep here over an undefeated Iowa State team. But then the Cyclones, they made their adjustments, and they made them big time. That third set, that was really the Hawkeyes' chance. They went to extra points there again. Cyclones took it, and then they kind of just coasted the rest of the way. It really seemed like they found their groove. They made the right adjustments, and the Hawkeyes could not take that one. But I still think that's a game where Jim Barnes and the volleyball girls, they can grow from that and learn. That's a great defense in Iowa State.
As you mentioned, Coach Barnes and that team will grow from this, and we'll talk more about that. But, field hockey, #1, you haven't called them yet, but they're #1 in the country. Big games upcoming for them. Iowa women's soccer, off the rails right now. You called that game and they beat Iowa State. Let's talk about the soccer program.
Yeah, exactly. And it really feels like everything's finally starting to go right for the soccer program. Obviously, the 2020 pandemic year, they only got into the Big Ten tournament because it was COVID, and then they ended up winning the thing and then even winning a tournament game. A lot of those players are still around here. Eliotto is on the team, Kenzie Rowling. Those 2 players have been really great. Micah Ingles is back now. She redshirted last year. And I think this team is really starting to find their own. They have a 7th year senior with Josie Durr.
The female just settled, basically.
Exactly. And really, you could just see the veteran leadership on this team. They had a 2-1 victory over the Cyclones. They were up 2-0 in that game.
Yeah.
Cyclones tried to tie it up there at the last possible second. Iowa held on, and the soccer, they've just been rolling ever since then. It seemed like that really built some great momentum for the Hawkeyes.
Well, and you mentioned Rowling, and she came in as the player of the year in Iowa from Waverly Shellrock, so a local talent, or in-state talent. So great to see her and the rest of Iowa women's soccer taking and rolling, pun intended there. But Michael, when we talk about the football game upcoming, and you're traveling alone this time, so you're not bringing a crew, and you're not in a suite at Kinnick, the 2 of you and your buddy Max with the analysis, and you with the play-by-play. You're going solo.
They did not approve all 3 of us. Maybe it's because we're the student radio. They didn't want to give us all 3. So I'll be making the solo trip up there to Ames, just me, myself, and I. But I'm excited for it. It should be a great game. Iowa State looked better than anyone really would have assumed going into that UNI game. UNI usually plays them tough. I mean,
especially with a great quarterback in Theo Day from UNI, and now McNamara coming in, Cyclones will be ready.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have a cupcake of a quarterback, even though they were playing an FCS school there in UNI. Theo Day is a good quarterback, and they didn't really make him look like one.
No.
That secondary is what everyone is saying it is, and we talked about it earlier. They have even some bulletin board material now with what Seth Anderson said.
Yep.
So it'll be really interesting to see how the Hawkeyes come into this. Obviously, I don't think they showed their whole playbook against Utah State, so I'm hoping that they won't sputter out like they did against the Aggies.
But what I like when you mentioned student-run radio, and folks, so Michael's a senior this year, and last year we were working together in his junior year. Michael's going to be out in the world in May, working, and you've had some great internships on at WHO in Des Moines, but also KFXA Fox 28 and WHO Sports does the sports on Fox 17. So you've been with two of our stations that were on for this Hawkeye show, but the show will be on Fox 28 and Fox 17. 2:30 kickoff on Saturday. Again, we record this on Thursday afternoon, September 7th. The reason I bring all this up is that's why I like having you on this side of the camera. You're on campus. You're around the players, not just not just in the community, but in the classroom, around the classroom. You're at press availabilities. You're at the games. You've got it all covered. You're calling play-by-play. You did a great feature on Nick Jackson, and just talking to James Morrison, a former Hawkeye linebacking great, and James Morris also won a Super Bowl ring with the Patriots, so he's got a little career behind him. So James Morris was a stud, as you mentioned, in high school as well, player of the year in the state of Iowa. So when he says this about Dave, it's going to take some time for Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins to get together. Higgins with the 16 tackles, 11 of them solo last Saturday. Jackson, you could tell, was kind of working in. But you've got a little insight for us that a lot of people aren't aware of, so please lay that out for us.
Yeah, so Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson are actually probably two of the closest players on the entire Iowa Hawkeye team. Jay actually welcomed Nick in his visit back when Nick first visited campus in Iowa City, and then now they are roommates right now.
Wow, that's
I've
awesome.
talked to Nick and Jay at media days. Nick says, sometimes he'll go start his car up, and then he'll get a text from Jay saying, "Where are we going?" And then they end up going together if they're going to Menards, if they're going to the facility, whatever. And he says just the fact that they're always talking about football, the fact that they're always, even when they're off the field, they're talking about football or they're just talking about life. Those two are really great friends. Talk to a lot of the players on the team. Ask them who the funniest guy is. It's Jay Higgins, apparently. That's near the consensus of it, and Nick Jackson definitely testified for that. Jay's got his jokes, and it's really just great to see their bond on the field. And one thing about Nick Jackson that I think we'll see against Iowa State, I think he'll be closer to a lot more of those plays. With how spread and how up-tempo Utah State was playing, we had to see Jackson guard in the slot a lot of those times, and Jay was the lone middle linebacker there. So I think it'll be a little bit more normalized, and those tackles will be a little bit more spread out between the two of them.
To your exact point, to see friendships like that and not the divisive, well, he's trying to take my job or he's going to push me out. I like the iron sharpens iron mentality, which is, the common sports phrase now or has been the last handful of years. I'm glad to hear that. And see, that's the insights a lot of people aren't aware that you get to see on campus, in classroom, out in the community, but also when you go to practices and games. So really appreciate your insights. And so are you going to go with what James Morris and I are saying? Well, I said the Hawks like a 28-17. He was saying like 33-23. Do you think it's that high scoring, or Hawks by how many?
I guess I'm a little bit more pessimistic than you guys. I just feel like the Iowa State defense is going to be good. The Hawkeyes still got to fully click on offense. We always know that it takes offenses a little bit longer to get rolling. I think it's going to be a 2017 Hawkeye victory. It's going to be really close, though. I just think this atmosphere, Jack Trice, they're really going to be popping. I know it's a lot of backups and reserves for Iowa State, but like we heard James Morris say, sometimes it's like a different teams out there.
And what I like about this is all three of us predict Hawkeye victories. That's all that matters. So, Michael, great seeing you as always.
Great to see you, Dave.
Thank you so much. He's Michael Merrick, my production partner, and on this side of the camera, he'll be joining us again on this side of the camera, as he did many times last year as well. So, for Michael Merrick and also for James Morris, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. We'll be back with more to close out the show in just a few moments.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology, or a seed company that's writing a book on it? Mershman Seeds is a leader in technology. We're independent and family owned. Our sister company, MS Technologies, provides access to world-class traits and genetics. And our starting line seed treatment is second to none. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see, our buddy Sean Bock from CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports, joining us. Sean, beat writer, but also handles recruiting exclusively and extensively for the Iowa Hawkeyes beat. So, Sean, first and foremost, as always, thanks for joining us. Man, we are into season 4 already. Can you believe that? You've been with us for the whole ride. So, thanks for kicking this off. We're into episode 3 now of season 4, but let's you and I talk recruiting. We've laid the game out, Cyclones, Hawkeyes with James Morris and Michael Merrick, and now I want to talk some recruiting with you. As we record this on Thursday afternoon, September 7th, Nick Brooks, and when I say a big recruit, I mean that in every sense of the word, Sean. The Cedar Rapids product. Talk to us about that. His signing is tomorrow. Of course, by the time that all happens, the folks will have already seen it after the fact by the time this show airs, or if they watch it online. But let's you and I talk about Nick Brooks and what you have ahead of you in the next 24 hours, Sean.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of days. I mean, obviously with the Cyhawk coverage that is taken full attention, and there was a big recruiting last weekend for Iowa for both basketball and football, and one of the big names that was on campus last weekend was Cedar Rapids Kennedy 4-star offensive lineman Nick Brooks. And if you're familiar with Brooks, I mean, obviously he's moved back to Cedar Rapids, but he spent his first 2 years of high school in Georgia. And it's kind of funny because I think it was during the height of COVID, or it was maybe a little bit after COVID, the Cedar Rapids Kennedy football Instagram posted a picture of Brooks going into his freshman year.
Yeah.
He was listed at 6'8", 335 pounds. And then ESPN got a hold of that picture too. And then, high schools from Georgia started calling him down. So he went to Georgia for 2 years, decided this summer or in the spring to move back home to Cedar Rapids. He's got a big family, very close with his family. And now he's decided to, kind of make a decision. And, as of now, all things point to Iowa. Obviously, if you look at his top 5 schools, Florida State, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama. So definitely, some intimidating foes. But, I think with Brooks moving back to Cedar Rapids into the 319, that's going to play an important role in this recruitment for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking Tristan Wirfs type or all the other Brandon Sheriff. I mean, not just with the weight room, but the skill level he could get with the experience and training at University of Iowa. So, not every block's going to be a pancake. That's the goal. But, yeah, like you said, you've got to sustain that. So let's you and I talk a few other recruits that were coming in, that were on campus or on the sideline, or that are going to be coming in, and then we'll follow up with that next week with you as well. But who else? A name very familiar to Hawkeye fans. I know you're going to talk about one of these guys, Sean.
Yeah, Jose Epinesa out of Edwardsville, down near St. Louis area. That last name, like you said, Dave, sounds very familiar. Epinesa, AJ Epinesa, Eric Epinesa. Iowa fans know that family well, and Jose is the youngest and could be maybe the most talented of the bunch. We'll see. He's in his junior season. Came down with AJ and the rest of his family last week for the season opener against Utah State, and it's a battle for his commitment. I mean, a lot of people think it might just be a softball for Iowa, but there are a lot of heavy hitters involved in this one. But as Epi kind of did with AJ's recruitment, he wants his son to see everything. Obviously the Iowa ties are going to be there. Grew up an Iowa fan. Both of his brothers went there. Obviously Epi went there too. So obviously the Hawkeyes are going to be at the forefront of the recruitment, but Epi wants his son, and Jose wants to see, all these schools that potentially offer him and, have something to offer him because, it's his recruitment at the end of the day. And like I said, Iowa's always going to be there, but there's a lot of schools, a lot of heavy hitters involved.
Sean, great stuff from you as always. I thank you so much. He is Sean Bock with CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports, recruiting specialist. And right there it is. Those are 2 top names right there. And hoping for some good news. Looks like it's going to be with Brooks when we talk to you next week. And we'll get some more insights with you on Epinesa from you, but also some other players. So, Sean, thanks so much. Look forward to catching up with you next week.
Yeah, you as well, Dave. Looking forward to it in person, too.
Yes, we'll see you in studio for sure. Thanks for getting us on a run today remotely. Greatly appreciate that via Zoom. So, for Sean Bock, Michael Merrick, and James Morris, I'm Dave O'Hara, and thanks to you, the viewers. For Hawkeye, that's all from me. Thanks to all of you. And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits. to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guests and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.